Now here we have the lower wing structure, and I've just removed it from the backing material. But there are a few areas that need a little bit of a tidy up, basically because of the some of the slots that are cut are very narrow, so the residue that's left there doesn't look like Depron anymore. It just looks like sort of shards of plastic. So you just need to put your knife in there and then remove these little pieces here that are sitting in the gaps. And also, as you may know, the aileron control system actually resides in the lower wing, but it actually controls the ailerons in the top wing. There are no ailerons in the lower wing, and that's by design. The actual aircraft, the P-6E, didn't have lower wing ailerons, but actually controlled the ailerons from the lower wing to the upper wing. So we've tried to replicate this in the aircraft to give it some sort of authenticity. So these little areas that I'm knocking out here now are where the wireform sits, the end of the wireform sits, that actually is used to control that system. The last area is here, these little holes through the wing close to the center of the wing, and they're actually the aileron control rods come up through these holes, so it's important we get them nice and clear so that it's not restricted at all. So that's the preparation over with, and now I can start covering the wing with our sticker material. Of course, the other thing that you can do, it's optional, is with the leading edge of the lower wing, we can once again actually sand down the sharp edges to create a curve at the front to make it slightly more aerodynamic. Now on my wing here, I'm actually only going to curve the top of the wing, and I'm going to leave a relatively sharp edge on the lower portion of the wing to try and create a little bit of an airfoil. I'm just going to take the edge off this lower wing here. Now, even in tests, I'm not exactly sure how effective or whether this makes any difference whatsoever to the model, but in theory it should. So we've got the top stickers on, and now on the underside I've already added in the carbon fibre rods. There are two of them. Make sure you leave a gap in the centre there. So push them right out to the ends of the wings. That gap is required obviously for the wing brace to go in. So it's important that there is a gap there so we can get it in. Okay, the next step is to put the aileron control rods in. This step is a little bit different than all our previous builds because there are a number of structures that sit on the end of the torsion rod. So let me just get the parts prepared for that, and we'll go through how that all goes together. So we have our parts here to assemble into the lower wing, and all these parts relate to the controls of the ailerons on the upper wing. These parts here are the rods that actually go from the lower wing to the upper wing to control the ailerons. And the actual rods here, these actual wire forms, go from the center of the wing to the outside of the wing and are connected to the servo in the fuselage that allows the control to happen. These small parts here are guides that lock the ends of these torsion rods in place in the wings, so that we don't get a lot of slop and we get a nice precise control of our ailerons. The first thing to do is to we actually have some sticker components to go onto these two parts here, and not only will that colour them in the correct livery, but it will also add a lot of strength to them. Prior to doing that, what I'm going to do, just so that we get a really nice fit, is just very lightly sand the bottom of each of these sticks, just to narrow them slightly, and this will help with the movement when they're attached to these ends on the aileron torsion rods. So I've sanded those down. Now it's time to pop the stickers on. So here we have one of the stickers that's going to go onto these plywood push rods, and the easiest way to apply it is to actually stick it to one side, get it all aligned, and once you're happy with the alignment, just roll it over to the other side of the sticker, to the other side of the part I should say, and there we go. All nicely stickered up in the olive drab of the original paint scheme. I've actually assembled the aileron control system, and you can see here that the aileron control rod here actually attaches to the torsion rod on the end situated here, and the little guide actually sits on the rod itself, and the manual shows very clearly how this all assembles, so you don't have to rely on what you see on camera. Just consult the assembly guide, and it'll give you a lot more detail, or a lot closer detail anyway. Now, what we do from this point in is actually install these rods and assemblies into the lower wing, and to do that we literally seat it in the channel that's already cut for us by laser, and you'll see that the guide actually slides into a little slot just alongside the opening that allows the push rod to exit the wing. Now, in this little area here, you may just want to put a dab of glue just to hold this little plywood guide whilst we assemble. But once we've got the coating on, once we've got the sticker over the top, it should hold it nice and firmly in its rightful place. So I will crack on and install both components, and then we'll come back and assemble the rest of the wing. Okay, so I have our aileron control assemblies now installed in the wing, and you can see the wires running down the channels here, and on the other side we've got the actual push rods protruding. Our next step is to actually insert the wing brace, but before we do, and as you'll see in the assembly guide, there's a little bit of work that we need to do first on the actual wing brace, as the wing brace, the portion of the wing brace that actually slots up into the fuselage and holds the wing at the required angle, actually sits either side of the aileron servo. So we actually need to cut a slot out of this particular part to allow it to insert into the fuselage and not impact on the aileron servo. The instructions give the measurements that need to be cut, as the slot isn't central, so consult the assembly guide before you start cutting, and measure up accurately so there are no issues when you actually come to the assembly of the wing onto the fuselage. Actually, I thought it might be advantageous if I show you how the cut goes on this particular part. What I've done for accuracy is I've actually measured and marked the area that I want to remove and hatched it just to show you exactly where it is. And if I now just move the camera slightly and take this to the edge of the table. So I think we're through. And there you have it. So we now have our gap that will allow us to insert our wing into our fuselage. Now, when installing this into the wing, make sure you get the right orientation. Obviously, you want the gap to reflect where the servo is in the fuselage, and it's essentially the longer portion of the wing brace, the vertical part of the wing brace, faces forward, and the shorter part faces rearward. And we can now assemble it onto our wing. Now the slot is pretty tight for this brace to go in, and you might just have to loosen it up slightly, or as in here, that seems to be fine. Now I'm just dry fitting this at the moment, and what you want to do is actually glue this part in place. And an extremely important fact in the build is to get this dihedral introduced into the wing. Now in the instructions it actually gives you some measurements, and so when you actually install the wing, you can check the amount of dihedral you're introducing against the figures. And the importance of this is that obviously the rods that we have that control the ailerons are a specific length, and obviously we want those to keep the ailerons in a very neutral position when the servo's at neutral. If the wing dihedral is too low, then it'll drag those ailerons downwards. So we really want to make sure we get that dihedral introduced into the wing itself. Right, I'll go ahead and glue this part in place, and we'll come back once I've fixed the underside stickers to the wing, and we can assemble this onto the fuselage. So I've covered the entire wing of the lower wing of the aircraft. I used the box innards to allow me to rest the part whilst I put the stickers on. With all these protrusions that we have now, and of course with the dihedral introduced into the wing, it's very difficult to lay it down on a flat surface, so using the packing material really works a treat. So now we need to assemble this onto the fuselage, and the key here, and a really important point to note, is that we need to position this absolutely correctly. If we don't, then it's going to be very difficult for us to align the top wing with the fuselage and the lower wing. So when you actually insert the wing itself, make sure it is pushed forward as far as possible. Then it will be in the right position to assemble the top wing onto the aircraft at a later stage. If it's not fully pushed forward, then there will be a few problems. They are rectifiable, and it's not particularly difficult to do, but obviously it's better if we assemble it correct first time. So make sure that the gap that you've got here that slots across the fuselage is clear, it's actually where it should be, and then the geometry of the aircraft will be correct. So I'll assemble the wing onto the fuselage, and I'll come back and describe in detail a few other bits and pieces that are different within this build.